Welcome to another episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm your host, Dr. Rady Rahban, and I'm super excited about today's episode. I'm excited, number one, because we're talking about noses. I love noses. Number two, I'm excited because we have a fantastic guest who has graciously agreed to come and talk about her journey, but a complicated journey. So I'm always extra grateful because when people have complications from their surgeries, they often don't want to talk about it. And as a result, they feel shameful or whatnot, even though it has nothing to do with them if they're shitty doctors. And at the end, we can't share their story. So whenever I have a guest who had arguably a complication or a bad outcome, and they have the courage to come on the show, I'm always grateful. So I want you guys to all listen in as we're going to dive deep into noses, revisions, etc. Welcome to the show, Chloe.
Thank you.
This young lady and I, how far out are you from your tertiary is your third time revision rhino? How far are we out?
2.5 months?
Yeah, about almost 3 months. And there's so many aspects of your journey that I think are important. And I remember when I met with you, what I liked about you was you were feisty and you were pissed. Why I bring that up is because so many times when people have revisions or they have had bad things happen to them by other doctors, they sort of shy down and sort of somehow take responsibility for it because the doctors will make them oddly believe that they were somehow responsible. Where in reality, and you were like, no, this is not right. This was completely jacked up and I'm not okay with it. And I like that because in your instance, that is accurate. And I like the fact that you had some, fight in you about it. Because I know that your parents, rightfully so, are like, it's okay, let's fix it, let's move on. And I do agree with that. But I like when patients have a little feist to them because at the end of the day, you shouldn't have been in the situation you're in. So let's back up. You're a young girl, 17. I think you had your first rhinoplasty. I did 2 out of my 4 nieces right around that age. So you go in, you have a rhinoplasty, and for all intents and purposes, it was pretty good. Nothing terrible. Maybe it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible. And you kind of lived with it. And everything kind of goes along. And like all noses, over time, they change. And they don't look exactly the way you like them to look. And normally the story is, oh, you went to some terrible doctor in, some strip mall in Vegas. This is as good as it can get. And while you're in the consult with her, your nose comes up, right? You weren't prepared. You didn't go there to have your nose done. You were just there to support. And your nose comes up. And the fact that your number one issue is I couldn't breathe well through my nose. And number two is like, if I could have anything I wanted, I wouldn't mind if my nose was a little smaller and more refined.
Yes.
Not a crazy desire to breathe and maybe have a little cuter nose. So your nose comes up, you're a little like, and the doctor's like, bam, dives in. And he's like, oh yeah, for sure. No problem. I can fix your breathing and we'll do a little this and a little that and I'll make it better. And then next thing you know, they're examining your breasts. You're being told that you need fat transfer from your thighs to your breasts. And I remember you telling me, you're like, I was very uncomfortable with the way this was going down. Correct?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you didn't go there asking for this. You were being examined in a way that made you uncomfortable, right? How tall are you?
5'4".
How much do you weigh?
120 or less.
So you're super tiny, fit young lady, and the idea or notion that somehow we're going to grab fat out of your thighs made you very uncomfortable because you're like, wait, do I have fat thighs? Which you absolutely don't. And so next thing you know, you're having a revision rhinoplasty. And in a weird way, it kind of happened to you unexpectedly. Am I describing this situation correctly or am I missing something?
No. Yes, you're explaining it correctly. But I did have the idea of getting my boobs done one day, just not at the same time ever as I would get a rhinoplasty.
Right.
And yes, and then we'll say the Medpor.
Yeah. So okay, no problem. So issue number one, I like to stop and point out the issues for the people listening who want to avoid the journey of our patients. When we bring revision patients on the show, the whole idea is they're going to share their experience and be vulnerable so that you, if you haven't had surgery, don't go through what they did. So issue number one is never, ever have a curbside consult. A curbside consult means the primary consultation is for something else, and all of a sudden you just trying to throw that in there. Did you ever have a formal consult with this doctor about your nose before having surgery?
Only the pre-op.
But was it a formal consult where, let me rephrase that. You know, you and I had a consult.
Yeah.
We sat down and I said, blah, 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 this, that, the other, risk, benefits, the whole shebang. Took almost an hour. Did you have one of those with this doctor?
No, only the pre-op right before the surgery.
Right. So, but the pre-op is just a rehashing of things.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, your consult was that moment when you were there for her surgery, right?
Right.
So that's the first error. When people ask me there's hundreds of times where I'm in the office, I'm seeing someone and someone else is in the room with them and they ask me a question about a surgery and I'm like, yeah, I guess we could do that or whatever. Every one of them, we force them to have a formal consult. My mother-in-law, I did my mother-in-law's facelift. She lives with us. I see her every day. When she wanted to do her facelift, I brought her into the office and did a 1-hour formal consult. You always have to have a formal consult in which you and the doctor talk about your surgery and no other surgeries and go over the risks, the benefits, the game plan, draw out things, talk about your history, what was done in the first surgery. Like I asked you, what was done in the first surgery? What was done in the second surgery? Was it open? Was it closed? So that was number one. So nonetheless, you go in, you do your pre-op, which is the day before, and the next thing you know, you're about to be like, they give you the drugs ready to go into surgery, right? And all of a sudden, next thing you know, before you're getting wheeled into the operating room, the surgeon reemerges and says, hey, while we're about to go in, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to chop up this material, permanent plastic, and put it in your nasolabial fold. Did you even know what the hell that was?
Well, he never described it like that.
Okay. So tell me what, because you told me this and I was like, what? So you're about to get wheeled in. They already gave you some drugs. You're a little loopy. And what happened?
Well, first at the pre-op, we briefly discussed, like, maybe your nasolabial folds are pretty deep, like Medpor would help that. And I was like, I don't even know what Medpor is, but like, let me think about it.
Sure.
Think about it till the next morning, which I'm obviously under a lot of pressure and like stressed already about going in. And then I am administered Valium and yeah, he comes to mark up my face.
Right.
And then he's like, have you decided on the Medpor? And at that point, it was not only peer pressured into me, but like, yeah, I was just like, okay, you trust your surgeon too.
Sure,
so I was like, if you think this is best for me, then yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I never knew what I never knew.
Right. So you were not well informed.
Not at all.
So the second issue I have is that if I'm about to do anything to you, I am obligated, not only just because it's a legal obligation, morally I'm obligated to inform you, right? So, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then we call that being adequately informed. So if I'm about to put a Medpor in your mouth, let me back up. Medpor is basically a foreign device. It's a material. I just call it plastic because it's easy for people to understand. And we use it as an implant, like silicone. So what was being suggested to you is that you at 23
yes,
have your deep nasolabial folds, and that if you mince up this powder, make this plastic into powder, that you can put it in there and lift it up. You know, people use a little bit of filler, for example, in their nasolabial fold, which is transient and temporary. But this is a permanent, basically, implant that goes in your mouth to lift up your nasolabial fold. In general, I think that's insane. Just surgeon to surgeon. I think putting in this material through the mouth, which can get infected, is insane. taking this material, dicing it up, and can never be removed fully because it becomes like incorporated in your body is insane. And frankly, I just think the aesthetic of obliterating someone's nasolabial fold at 23 is insane. That all being said, nonetheless. So here you are, you get wheeled in. Last minute, as you said, you felt pressure to be like, okay.
And sorry, really
Yeah,
quick,
yeah.
the surgeon said it would make my nose like stay up. Basically, like it wouldn't fall down or like.
Right. So the
Medpor
the explanation that you were given is that the Medpor that's placed in your nasolabial fold somehow will support your nose.
Yes.
That's nonsense. The nasolabial fold is its own structure. It's the line that connects from the corner of your nose to your mouth, hence the term nasolabial. And in some people, absolutely not you, it's very deep. And in some people, absolutely not you, like Asian patients, their maxilla, their bone, is really weak and the nose sits really deep into the face. So in maybe those patients, you want to prop up the nose or push the nose out. Well, none of that applies to you. So yeah, that's pretty nonsense. So you go in, you do your surgery, you wake up, and like most patients, you don't really know what your nose looks like for 2 weeks. At some juncture, your cast is removed. And what happens?
I'm extremely swollen. Like I noticed my nose, but I didn't notice how drastic that it was asymmetrical and my nostrils were completely not aligned. I go to Idaho where it's super cold and I was able to be less swollen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, first of all, I don't look like myself.
Right. So you go back to Idaho.
Yes.
And what happens?
My face was able to swell down a bit, but my lips were gigantic. My whole face was like a puffer fish. So I'm more so worried about my whole face, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, my nose is asymmetrical too. I am freaking out, but I'm also like, I need to trust the process.
Right. Because you know that rhinoplasty, it's not uncommon for you. Let me ask you a question. How long did the surgery take?
8 hours.
8 hours. Wow. That's a long time. We do heart transplant in 8 hours. How long did our third time revision take?
3 hours.
3 hours. Okay, great. And then how long did you have to be in a recovery center of some sort?
A week and a half.
Week and a half.
And recovering for probably 5 to 6 months. Like, did not look like myself.
Okay. When we did your third time revision, how long did you stay in a recovery center?
No time.
0. Like, you
0.
went home. Like, okay, that was that. So I want you to understand these things because they become much more obvious to you after you have a point of reference, right?
Yes.
So you have like, you did your primary, you did your revision. Well, maybe this is what revisions are like. Maybe revisions are 8 hours. No. Maybe your revision is like, whoa, the recovery is way worse. Is you're only 2 months out, you look amazing.
And I was barely bruised, barely swollen in ours, and I look like myself. I didn't look like myself for 6 months.
Right. So I think
especially because of the Medpor, I looked like a doll, like a fake Cabbage Patch doll.
Yeah, I think you're right. You couldn't break a smile here.
No.
So here you are trusting the process because you have no other choice. And swelling is going down. Swelling is going down. And to your horror, it's getting more crooked. To your horror, your nostrils are getting more asymmetric. And
I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do with my face. So I go in 2 months later, or maybe a month after, and I was like, my nose is crooked. This is 2 months actually, because I was so swollen, like I said, I couldn't even really see. And the surgeon is like, no, just trust the process. Like, it's still healing. Like, it's going to straighten out. And
so that's right there a lie. Every person in the world, what improves with time is swelling. What doesn't improve with time is crookedness. Crookedness gets worse, just FYI. Whatever it is at 2 months, it's worse at 5 months, it's worse at a year.
Yes, and before this surgery, my nostrils were never different sizes. Like, I don't think my nose was crooked at
right,
that point.
you would know. You would know, right? You would know if your nose was jacked up before. So, okay.
Yes. And so the surgeon puts cortisone shots in my nose, and he's like, I don't know, what would cortisone do?
Well, it's going to help with the swelling. It's not going to fix your nostrils, and it's not going to help with the crookedness.
Yes, he said it would help with the nostrils and the crookedness
Right.
and with the swelling, but it did nothing. I keep doing my hyperbaric chambers. I'm like, it wasn't even the swelling at this point. I'm like, my face is messed up. I look botched, first and foremost. And no, first and foremost, my nostrils are crooked and my nose is asymmetrical, and I looked completely botched. And I'm like, I'm a 23-year-old girl. Obviously, this is like heartbreaking and horrible.
Devastating. So you're trying to manage this, and I imagine this is the part that I think is really people lose. You went in to fix yourself, make it a little bit better. It's significantly worse, and now you're panic-stricken because you're only 23. But guess what? If you were 43, you'd still be panicked. It's your face. And it's a very scary place to be, and people usually get kind of depressed. And because they become self-conscious, who am I going to go tell? No one's going to feel sorry for me. Who's going to feel sorry for you? I mean, why did you even mess with your nose? You should never touched it, right? There's not a lot of sympathy for people who are getting aesthetic surgery that goes bad. Like if you were getting a gallbladder removal and you had a complication, my God, you'd have hundreds of people feel bad for you. If you were getting your hysterectomy and something went terribly awry, everyone would feel bad for you. But if you're getting cosmetic surgery and it doesn't go well, no one really gives a shit because it's kind of like, well, shame on you for even touching yourself. You know, oh, you're so vain or whatever, which is just sad, but it's just unfortunate. So time is ticking by, and what happens? You've definitely lost faith in this surgeon, that's for sure. You're not going to go back to have. So,
oh, for sure.
And at some point, what did you decide? What happened? Tell me what the next phase was.
I like kept trying to be like, I never went back in because I'm like, I went in twice to say like my nose is crooked. And then it started the whole process of me being like, this surgeon doesn't have the capability to fix my nose.
Correct.
So I start going on a hunt and researching for a surgeon who can fix my face.
Right.
I also at this point have had 3 sinus infections like that I felt. But then probably 6 months later, I go in to see a surgeon who specializes in the inside.
Right.
And he says I have sinusitis. Is that a sinus infection?
Yeah, sinusitis. Yeah, of course.
Okay, but also the fact that we're going to take out my tonsils and like, I just didn't understand it. And this is a time where I didn't feel like I had a sinus infection.
Right.
So I get these x-rays done and I'm beyond confused. I speak to our family friend who is a really...
Yeah, so your family, and the interesting is your family friend, very close friend of your family, is a plastic surgeon that I happen to know very intimately, an amazing surgeon. First question is like, well, why didn't you go to him? Well, because family friend didn't want to go there because if something had gone wrong, it would destroy your family relationship. So you went to him and said, hey, listen, this is what I'm being told. I went to this ENT, they told me I have sinusitis and they want to take my tonsils out. I went to this other guy. And so he was like, wait, what the? No. None of this is true, right? It was all over the place. And he's the one that sent you to us.
Yes.
Right?
He said, you specialize in noses and I should come to you for a consultation. And then that's when I started doing research and listening to your podcast and being like, oh my gosh, I really think you can fix my face. But I also heard that you might not do a 3rd-time rhinoplasty.
Right. So I want to re-highlight what you just said. I listened to your podcast, very helpful. Went on your gallery, seems like you know what you're doing. And then I heard that you might not do a 3rd-time revision rhinoplasty. Why would I not do a 3rd-time revision rhinoplasty? Is my objective is to only operate on you if I can make you better. I don't need your money. I don't want to be a hero. I don't want to make you, who's already unhappy, terrible situation, 10 times worse than you are, right? And so what happens is that when you do your nose the first time, no problem. The second time, it makes it 1,000 times more difficult than the 3rd time because the scar tissue constantly building, and God knows what the last guy did. So as a result, I'm very picky because I only want to do things that I can help you with. And so we actually have a screening process. We actually see patients' photos and make sure that in reality, I can help them before they come from Idaho or Venezuela or China or wherever, because why would I drag you here if I can't make you for sure better? Yeah. But because of our relationship with your family friend and my dear friend, I said, just bring her in and let me take a look at her. And I was like, what happened? we did a 1-hour consult, which was nothing like the first time you had it done. And I told you, I can help you, but I can't guarantee that your nostrils will be symmetrical. I can't guarantee that your nose will be straight. I can't guarantee anything, but I can guarantee that I think I can make it better. And in regards to this Medpor thing in your mouth, I've never put one in, but I certainly am willing to try to take it out, so long as you recognize that, I don't know that I can take all of it out. One of the main reasons I agreed to operate on you is you seemed very reasonable. Often patients who are getting their third time revision become so challenging, particular, difficult, nitpicky, and they're the worst patients to operate on because there's no way on earth you're going to make them happy. And I remember saying, I'm not sure. You're like, I'm okay. If you can make it any bit better, I'm okay. So part of the reason I operate on you was because of your willingness to be easygoing about this. If you were like really wound up, I wouldn't have done your surgery. Even if I was sure that I could make it better, because I would be the new target, right? Yeah. The last guy got out of jail, and there's a saying, no good deed goes unpunished. I go to try to make it better, and now I'm your new target, right? So I did it because you were very level-headed when it came to this, despite the fact that your nose, in my opinion, terrible outcome. Terrible. And I did it because I thought you would be the type of person that I could make happy.
It was a terrible outcome before I came to you.
Right. Now you have this juxtaposition, right? You had your first surgery, your first consult, your second consult, now with me, the third. So what were the feelings and what happened then?
So I'm pretty sure you saw my op report. Is that in the first consultation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you go through everything, and then you took out this amazing list that you wrote or that you showed me, which are usually problems with noses.
Right.
And checked off all the problems that I had. Didn't even know, like the over-rotation, all these terms that I was like, I'm so happy with this. I'm so unhappy with this. Why does this look like that? Like, I didn't know why, and you explained it in such great detail and made it make sense. Like, even the foundation of how it's like a house, like how you would rebuild all of that. And after the consultation, I was with my mom. I'm like, I 100%, I feel sure I want to go with him. Like, I feel like it would be the best outcome for my face, and I fully trusted you.
Yeah, and that's important juxtaposition because we developed a relationship. You can't develop a relationship with a doctor without spending time with them. I don't care how famous they are. If I don't sit with you and talk to you and engage with you, how do you know that I can help you? Like, you can't. Like, you just can't. I have to sit down and talk to you, and there's no substitute. And then we did another pre-op where I was there. So we had a lot of time to mull this over. And I think the things that had gone wrong were all very classic. Number one, your nose was over scooped. Like, your bridge was way taken down. 2, your nose was over rotated. It was turned way up too high. 3, your tip was tiny, right? It was just, they made one point out of your tip. 4, your nose was crooked. It was going all the way to the right. And 5, your nostrils were totally asymmetric. And 6, you couldn't breathe. So here you are, 23, beautiful young lady. And what are you going to do? Just stay like this? It's just not acceptable. So we did your revision surgery 2 months ago. Remind me, I borrowed ear or fascia or ear. So, like we say over and over and over again, in order to do modern day meaning the last 10 to 15 years, modern day rhinoplasty, structure must be added to the nose to create a stable, strong foundation. Otherwise, noses shift and change and move. You can't build a structure by removing things. So did I take temporalis? Did I take stuff? No. Just ear cartilage, right? And we built you and tried to add in areas that were deficient and rearrange things. And as I said, derotate your nose and add to your bridge and so on and so forth. So here we are 2 months later. And
I'm really happy. First of all, I look like myself.
Oh, and I took out 90. Oh, so this Medpor thing, I had to open up the inside of your mouth, go onto your gums, go through your gums and up to the corner of your mouth. And as I expected, it was like, imagine just powder, like crushed salt. Salt is the best description. So I scooped out, I'd say 95% of it. But as I told you, some of it had just no way to get it out. But it did what it needed to do, which is it allowed your smile to come back to normal.
Yeah.
And I think your nose, as bad as it was, the fact that your nasolabial folds were obliterated was the thing that was making it seem really odd.
Yes.
Right?
And it looks so unlike myself.
Right. And so we took that out and fixed it. So go ahead. So you're out 2 months now, obviously.
Well, something I wanted to highlight was like, because you described it, like how you're going to build it with each step, even if you need to take ear or rib, I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense to me, because my biggest worry coming in and like trying to fix my nose was I don't want to be 40 years old and 50 and even 30 in 10 years and be like, I don't trust that, first of all, what is in my nose is okay. Like the plastic of the Medpor might infect my face. I don't know.
Sure.
I had no idea what was internally in my nose, and I knew it wasn't a good thing. I was also smelling plastic for a month or 2 months after the surgery. And yeah, I didn't want to be older and be like even more unhappy.
Yeah, have to do that, exactly.
So, sorry, what was the question?
No, but you brought up a very, very good point, and I think this is important. You brought up the point that I didn't realize. I knew I was unhappy. It was obvious. It was affecting my self-esteem. I didn't realize how unhappy and how much I focused on my nose until I got it fixed. Right? Like you don't know until that noise goes away how much that noise is annoying. Like like you hear a noise, it's constant, and the noise goes away and you're like, oh my God, So tell me a little about that in terms of like, once your nose was better and you're confident, you didn't realize how much of that was taking up your time.
Yeah, well, it would be constantly, like no matter if I was out with friends, like wherever I was, I would constantly feel like people are staring at how asymmetrical my nose was. I would ask people would be honest. They're like, yeah, your nose looks super crooked. And I internally would feel like crushed and so angry at the same time. And now, even a month after, 4 weeks after the surgery, I saw multiple of my friends and I'm like, do you notice anything with my face? And they're like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you look amazing. I'm like, I got my nose done.
Right,
and they didn't notice that I looked like myself. Before I looked like crazy botched. And now I look like beautiful how I was like originally before I was messed up. They notice, and then obviously like when I was like, I got my nose done, they're like, oh my gosh, it looks so much less like Pinocchio, like it looks so beautiful, especially this side. I don't know how you got it to look so elegant and yeah.
And it's really interesting. What's really interesting is you underscore, which is what it always is. They were staring at your nose when it looked abnormal, yet you had it fixed, and they were unable to see that it was fixed because it was normal.
Yes.
Nobody pays attention to something that looks great. They look at things that look terrible, right? So you think these people who've been staring at your nose for at least a year, who have said to you, your nose looks, I'm sorry, I love you, you're my best friend, but your nose looks terrible. You'd think they would be the first person to be like, oh my God, your nose looks so much better. But they didn't even comment because it looked normal. Yes. And when you look normal, you just don't pay attention. Like, it's just not relevant. What do you want me to say? It looks good. That's amazing, right? That just shows you that that's what our brains are designed to do, is just notice baseline normal. We always pick out the abnormal thing, not the normal thing. And the other thing that you had mentioned to me, you said why I want to be on the show, was that for other people who are feeling desperate to have some hope that someone, not necessarily me, but that to not lose hope and to keep searching, that someone can help them get out of that dark, unhappy, self-conscious place that having botched surgery takes you, right? Isn't that what you had said to me?
Yes.
So why don't you elaborate a little bit on that for me?
when I had gone to even like 2 consultations before you, I was like, yes, I think that I'll feel better and look better, but like I can't fully trust.
So the reality is that, here you were, probably at 6 months after your rhinoplasty. You're looking at yourself in the mirror, and I can't imagine you're not just like freaking out.
Yeah.
So you could have just said, well, this is my new life. I just, it is what it is. No. But you're like, no, I'm going to keep, I have to fix this. And so for a lot of people, they lose hope and they just surrender and they just say, fuck it, it is what it is. I shouldn't have done the first one. I definitely shouldn't have done the second one. I should learn my lesson and not go and fix it anymore. Just leave it as, the enemy of good is better. I'll just leave it alone. But what you were telling me was like, I'm so happy that I didn't just roll over and just leave it be.
So happy. And I think it's important to do like a deep dive and lots of research, which I also messed up on with the prior surgery. Like I didn't do my research. I didn't look at stuff in depth like I did with you and before I got this done. Like I saw all your revisions. I saw how you changed people and like they looked not worse, some of your patients, but like they had messed up noses as well. And I'm like, wow, if he could fix their nose, I'm sure he could fix mine and at least make me 90% happier and straighter. And like, as you explained to me, I'll never 100% be like, have symmetrical nostrils, but I'm okay with that. And I'm okay to look like I'm so beyond happy that I could feel fixed. And that's why I don't think anyone should lose hope.
Yeah, and I think definitely that's the case. And I think we're going to highlight one more thing. This is every time I have a revisional patient on with me, this is what they say. The first time I did my surgery, I didn't do enough homework. If you wanted to get your nose done, you would have sat behind a computer and you would have started researching people. Instead, you kind of got swept into the current, right? So she went to someone for something she thought was going to be good. You never had the opportunity in your revision surgery. Whereas the third time, even though you were recommended to me by our mutual friend, you did your own homework. Did you just come here because he said come here?
No.
And you just showed up at my office and you sat down and like, well, my dad's friend said this is the guy.
No.
No way. You really did a deep dive. You're like, I learned my lesson. I got burned the second time. I'm not going to do that again. And look at the difference it makes when you do your own homework.
Yeah.
No one can do the homework for you but you. That's key.
And I think it's a problem when a plastic surgeon is like specializing in everything and says that they can do everything the best. Like I personally don't think that's true.
Yeah. I think the reality with that is, it's funny you should mention that because I am that guy, actually. I am the guy that does everything. But I think the difference is that I think at the end of the day, no matter what a surgeon says he or she can or can't do, they must back it up with results. So let's say you came to me tomorrow and you're like, hey, Dr. Rahban, I'm thinking of doing my breasts and I'm now your nose doctor. You go to my gallery. I love Dr. Rahban. He saved my life. I trust him with my life. And you go to my gallery. Either one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to go, wow, these are terrible results. In which case, no matter how much you love me, I'm not the right guy. Versus you go there and be like, holy shit, these breasts are amazing. This guy's super talented. He did an amazing nose for me and his breast work is amazing. Well, then the guy's amazing at breast work. There is no rule. The rule is anything anyone says they can do, they have to put the evidence out.
Yes.
They need to say, here's 50 examples of ear pinning. Here's 50 examples of chin ogs. Here's 50 examples of breast ogs, breast lifts, reductions, body lifts. So many times when patients say, I got botched, and you go back and look at the surgeon's work, it was terrible.
And a lot of their work is botched. I later saw reviews, and on Yelp, the main point is this surgeon botched my face.
Right. So what I'm saying is if, which is too late now, water under the bridge, had you just spent the time you normally would have, you would have probably figured that out.
Yes.
Right? You would have avoided this unfortunate situation. But at the end of the day, all that ends well is great. You're here, you're happy, we got you 95% of the way there. We removed 95% of the Medpor. You look gorgeous. You're not even out of the woods yet in terms of, you're still swollen and it's only going to look better. And we're just happy for you. And I'm really happy for you because you're sweet, you're young, and you have all your whole life ahead of you. And it would have sucked ass if you had to live with a jacked up nose for the rest of your life, because I assure you it would ruin your life. You would be self-conscious forever. And,
it was already ruining my life.
Yeah, and it was just within a year. At any rate, I mean, I think I think the message is to take home for everyone listening is do your own homework, do your own homework, do your own homework. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Out of the 1,000 revisions I've done, maybe 1% of them are in patients who did an extensive amount of homework and they still got botched. In which case, well, then it was just lightning strikes when lightning strikes. There's nothing you can do about it. At any rate, thank you for coming on our show. We're so happy to have you. And as always, if you enjoy our episodes, if you like our podcast, I need you to do me 2 favors. One is I'd love for you all to go and write us a positive review. Positive reviews help us feel good about being here on a Sunday. Sally Chacon is here in the background. She's my, my wing woman, and she's here waiting for your reviews to come in. And then the second thing is, if you like our shows, share it with the family members and friends that you love, because you think that they're figuring things out and you don't know what they're about to do that you wish that they had read or listened to our show. So disseminate our podcast. And that's it. Yeah, that's a wrap for this week's episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm your host, Dr. Rady Rahban, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.